Matt, congratulations
Thank you.
on the film. You've said, I wanted this film to be a biblical epic. I see Caesar as the ape Moses.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because if you look at it in the history of this early ape civilization, he is the critical figure that without him, they wouldn't be where they are. And the idea, especially given the conflict of this story, which is a war story, was to put Caesar to his greatest test yet. And in passing it, he will transcend into the realm of the mythic. He will be that ape that other apes will look back at and say, you know, he forged the path for us. He is why we are here.
With a biblical film comes a mammoth budget. What's it like being involved in a film where I know money is a problem, but not like working on an indie film? What's it like to go, I want this, and 9 times out of 10 you get it?
No, well, you know, it's interesting because the thing about these movies, and it's not to say that the movies are enormously expensive, but what is the most expensive are the visual effects. And the challenge of this movie was that I wanted to do an ape point of view movie, and that meant that the apes are in every scene. So in the other films, there were always scenes that didn't have apes in them, and the ape shots are incredibly expensive. So the budget actually goes to paying to make sure that you see these close-ups of these apes and that you're connecting to the emotion of what you're seeing. So in a weird way, you'd be surprised how the production is not as grand as you would think. However, given that it's a war movie, so we wanted to have battles, and I wanted it to be like a David Lean movie. I wanted the movie to be the most ambitious apes movie yet, and we were able to do that. It was thrilling. You know, we went out and we shot on 65 millimeter, and we shot on these beautiful locations, and we have some pretty sizable battle scenes. And the thing that matters the most, though, and the thing that really most of that money went to, was the intimacy, which is all of the stuff that really matters. It's a war movie between the species, but it's the war for Caesar's soul that really matters. And so most of that money went to make sure that the emotions that Andy Serkis was giving us in his performance were translated into this photoreal ape that you looked at and felt like you were seeing yourself in some way.
I was watching it wondering, casting this film is completely different to casting any other film.
Sure.
How do you cast an ape, and how do you know, like, you go by your gut going, I think that's a good actor, but a good actor isn't necessarily able to convey the emotions that you need to be an ape?
No, and it's not that they can't convey the emotions. A good actor can convey the emotions. The question is, can they find a way to convey the emotions and still do what is required physically? What basically has to happen is they have to be able to work with Terry Notary and to be in their bodies in such a way, it's almost like you're learning a certain skill that then you have to forget, because the only thing that really matters is the emotional essence. But if you can't, as a foundation, do the ape movements, then the illusion won't be complete. So the casting process is challenging. You know, the actors come in and I first have them do a scene that is a human scene, and I see what they're like as actors. And then we start throwing at them these kind of more primitive exercises, and then if there's an actor that I really like, we have them do callbacks where I have them work with Terry Notary, and I talk to Terry and I say, so Terry, you know, I like this actor a lot. What was your sense about their ability to pick up these movements? And he gives me, you know, his thoughts, and then ultimately I just make the call as to whether or not I think I'm going to get what I need from that actor. So it's an unusual process.
I also am totally blown away by all of you involved in this film, because I'd love to be in your brain. I don't understand how you're able to direct somebody and not get, like, what we see, the end product.
Yeah.
How do you direct something that isn't at the end product?
Well, the direction is actually easier for me than the putting together, because the direction, look, I'm looking at Andy Serkis, and the first version of the movie that I'm making is not Planet of the Apes. It's Planet of these people in mocap suits.
Yeah.
That movie works. That's the movie I first cut together. But what happens is you then have to find a way to, in post, represent that movie, and so much of what is supposed to be there isn't there, and you have to look at it as if it is there. So you do this weird thing where, you know, as a director, my job is to respond to what I'm seeing. Here, I have to block out things I'm not supposed to be seeing, and yet respond to the essence of what is going to be there. So it's a weird mind trick you play on yourself, and that's the hardest part, actually.
I'm totally blown away by that. I know you can't say much.
Yeah.
But how are you feeling about taking on the Batman?
I'm
and what
excited.
stage are you at?
We're at the very beginning. I just finished this movie. I mean, literally, the one thing about doing a movie where the main characters don't exist until they are realized through the most complicated visual effects that there are today, that means that that movie is not done until literally you're done. So I finished the movie about 8 days ago.
Are you
Oh
serious?
yeah, literally, yeah. So that's what's so weird is I've been working on this movie for 3 years, and the last year is all about the realization of those shots. And then what happens is around the time that the last shot comes in, because Weta will work up until the very end, you're done. And so suddenly I'm like, oh, that's the movie. And then it's like, oh, here's the movie. It's a very strange process. So anyway, the point of that being that I haven't even begun to work on Batman yet.
But you're very excited about it.
Oh, very much so.
And finally, you've said that you see this as more, Planet of the Apes, as more than 3 films. Do you still see it as more than 3
For
films?
sure. Yeah, I mean, one of the things we were seeding in Bad Ape was this notion that there are more apes out there that aren't Caesar's apes, and that the world is much larger than the apes ever imagined. And I think, you know, those apes might not just be pockets of 1 and 2, there might be communities of apes, and they wouldn't have had the benefit of Caesar's leadership. So the conflicts in the future might not just be between humans and apes, they might be between apes and apes.
Could be very interesting. Matt
Yeah,
Reeves, thanks
for
so much
sure.
for your time.
Thank you.